If you wish to speak during announcement and/or joys and concerns, please go to the participants icon, click on the raise hand button. A blue hand will appear by your name. When you are called on, you can then hit the unmute button. Click on lower hand button and the mute me button when you are finished. Remember, do not unmute yourself until called on. Thank you. Also, if you are not in speaker view, seeing only me next to the slideshow, then click on the speaker view button near the upper right-hand part of your screen. Every person has value as a member of the human family. The suffering caused by racism must be ended if we want to create fair and loving communities. We work to end racial discrimination and injustice, starting within ourselves and moving out to the world around us. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lit the flame within us and within our community. Before we sing the first hymn, let me remind you to leave yourselves muted. However, we want you and whoever is with you to sing with Jan or Mary as big and loud as you can. Make it a joyous experience. So let's sing the opening hymn, Answering the Call of Love, number 1014.
So this hymn has a rich history, and I'd like to share a little bit of it with you, actually quite a bit of it, before we sing the song. In 2004, then President of the UUA, William Sinkford, had just learned that President George Bush had called for a constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage. And Jason Shelton, who's the composer of this hymn, was in a meeting with him when he heard a reporter ask about what the UUA thought about this. And William Sinkford said, "We are standing on the side of love." And at that very moment in that meeting, Jason Shelton started scribbling down notes and lyrics, and the hymn was born. So Standing on the Love became a great big anthem for marriage equality. And later in 2010, it was used again for immigration reform. In fact, in banners, white, yellow, and black T-shirts saying "Standing on the Side of Love" were everywhere. And we had 3 people from our own community. That was Dolores Miera, the late Reverend Charlie Archibald, and Janet Cooper, who along with Gina Whitaker from the Slow Church went to Phoenix and to the tent cities. Oh, did you go? Andy also went. And they stood there with their banners, and UUA still has a banner that says "Standing on the Side of Love." So we're very proud of that. But over the years, there were people in the UUA who were felt left out. And as a story is told by Reverend Sinkford, Jason Shelton had one person say to him that she felt left out, and she was wheelchair bound, and he changed the lyrics in, forgot the year, but he recently changed them to answering the call of love, which we will sing today as a congregation for the first time. And we may from time to time go back and forth, because there's nothing wrong with standing. We know that in our language that doesn't mean physically standing necessarily, but today we are concentrating on answering the call of love.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We are glad that you have joined us today. As a Unitarian Universalist community, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who journey in search of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation, inviting speakers from different religious traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds to speak in our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest to our community that connect with the UU7 principles. Today's service centers around the second principle. We affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Compassion is something that we can easily act on individually. We can demonstrate openness, give people respect, and treat people with kindness on our own. But we need one another to achieve equity and justice. It points us to the larger community. It promotes collective responsibility. It reminds us that treating people as human beings is not simply something that we do one-on-one, but something that has systemic implications and can inform our entire cultural way of being. My name is Sue Davis, and I am your worship associate this morning. I would like to extend a special welcome to today's guests and visitors. We are glad that you have joined us this morning under these challenging circumstances. If you are not on our mailing list, please visit our website at www.uuccambria.org so that we can keep you informed about all of our activities. As a reminder, if you wish to see this or any of our past Zoom services again, recordings of these services can be found on the UUCC website and Facebook as well. The membership committee invites non-members to consider becoming a member of our community. Please contact Janet Cooper or a board member if you're interested. Thank you. Finally, you are welcome to stay after the service this morning for a question and comment session with Amanda. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone. Let us now recite the affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. We set aside this time for any short announcements that would be of interest to our UU community members and friends. Please keep your items short and to the point. For any items that need more explanation, please call or email the person after the service to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have an announcement, please raise your hand by clicking on the raise hand button near the lower right of your participants window. When Susan calls your name, click the unmute me button near the lower left of the participation window, then speak.
Andy, please unmute yourself and make your announcement.
Okay. Hi, this is me at Arlington, and my announcement is regarding these. I have purchased 15 t-shirts from the Black Lives Matter movement in support of the movement, and my purpose is to distribute them to members of the congregation and other friends, ideally white people, older white people who are with the understanding that they're willing and able to wear them in public. The point being to raise consciousness both within ourselves and in our community. If you would like to receive a t-shirt, one of those that I've purchased, please email me or call me and I'll figure out how to get it to you. I have medium, large, and extra large. This one's extra large. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. Randy, would you please unmute yourself and make your announcement?
Yes, I wish to defer my announcement to Treva. I'll let her make the announcement regarding the bylaws. Thank you.
Treva, would you please unmute yourself and make your announcement?
Good morning, all. So tomorrow night at 5 o'clock, there is a board Zoom meeting. If you'd like to join, please email me and I will forward the invitation to you. And Randy, I haven't checked my email yet, so I'm not quite sure. The board will be discussing what's going to be happening with the vote. The vote was supposed to happen on August 2nd. However, there are some talks going on around the bylaws, and it is turning into an incredible democratic process. If you are interested in joining the bylaw conversation, it is Tuesday at 6, I believe. And Randy, if I blew it in terms of anything you wanted me to announce, please forgive me. But again, I have not checked my email. Thank you all.
That was all good. Excellent.
Thank you, Treva. I would like to make an announcement, a reminder that if you donate online through our Tithely account or where you check, pledge or donate from our website, that there is a 2.9% fee that is charged. And if you do not elect to pay that fee yourself, that it will be deducted from your donation. So it's just a heads up so that people are aware of that. Next, Jan, would you please unmute yourself and make your announcement?
Sure. This is a final shout out for the postcard writing campaign that I'm involved with. We're responsible for 4,000 postcards, and I don't know how many we have so far, but I've done 20. So I have 5 volunteers so far, and I will get you the cards as soon as possible because they want them back by the end of July. So please let me know today if you would like to write out 20 cards. And it's simply encouraging people to vote. They have a script already manufactured for you. You just have to write it out in your own hand and sign the card with your first name. So please let me know if you would like 20 cards or 10 or 40 or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Robert and Nancy, please unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Nancy. And I'm just was asked to announce that there's going to be a broadcast interview with the author and Professor Ibram X. Kendi, who wrote How to Be an Anti-Racist. It will be aired tomorrow at live at, it'll be streamed, I guess, live at 4 o'clock, ending at 5, so you can still attend the board meeting. And if you would like a link, just email me and I'll forward my email to you.
Thank you, Nancy. Chris, would you please unmute yourself and make your announcement?
Through my work with the UU Justice Ministry Cluster, we received a challenge by Allies for Immigration Justice SLO County to participate in a fundraising drive now through the end of July. And the fundraising is to benefit the SLO County Undocu Support Group. We have over 9,000 undocumented workers living and working in SLO County. Many people are in just very precarious positions, losing their homes, getting far behind on their rent because of the work situation. So I just got the email and I am not quite sure how I will be moving information to the congregation, but check the newsletter on Tuesday. I'll have something there And perhaps I'll be sending out some of the individual stories via our group email system. So again, I'll get everyone more information. Please let me know if you want to speak to me specifically about it. And thank you in advance for helping UCC rise to the challenge and in helping raise funds for this really worthy group.
Thank you, Chris. Lou, would you please unmute yourself and make your announcement?
Men's group meets tomorrow at 10 as usual. I'm pretty confident that this meeting won't result in as much excitement as the last one, but we'll see.
Thank you, Lou. Kat, would you please unmute yourself and make your announcement?
Yes, it was 2 weeks ago that we had the Black Voices Matter poetry read and reading. And if anybody's interested in having a compilation of what was read that night, I'm happy to eventually get it to you. So just email me, let me know, call me, and I'll do that. Thank you.
Treva and Janet, I'm not sure if your hand was up from before or if you have an announcement.
I do not have an announcement. I thought I put my hand down.
We may have canceled each other out.
Okay.
Diane, would you please unmute yourself and make your announcement?
I'm going to be ordering some signs for anyone who's interested in putting it out in their front yard. The sign says, in this house, we believe Black Lives Matter, women's rights are human rights. No human is illegal. Science is real. Water is life. And religious freedom. Love is love. And kindness is everything. And I don't know if you can see somewhat of the sign that I have in front right now. It's might be too close. I don't know if you can tell. Oh, there it is. Okay, so it's about 2 feet by 2 feet. And anybody who wants one can have one. I ask that you simply write an offering or a check to the UU community of Cambria for as little or as much as you'd like, and just let me know that you would like one, and I will drop it off at your home. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you everyone for those announcements.
Okay.
Do it again.
Next week, Judy Butler presents Sheroes Now. Sharing together some of our personal and significant joys and concerns brings us closer as a faith community. We invite you to share the milestones that are deeply felt as part of your personal life. But please be mindful and considerate of all who come to worship with us this morning. This is a time of community building. The collective flames of these candles also embody all the joys and sorrows which may have gone unspoken today, but are also deeply felt in this community. Our first reading is by Sean King, dated June 2017, the New York Daily News. If you ever had the impression in any one of the police brutality cases that have ripped your heart out across the years, that we were fighting against a single brutal cop, that's where your mistake began. While each case of police brutality on the most granular level may be unique, with different cops and victims and circumstances and evidence, the results are the same. In case after case, because what we are fighting isn't just against that one cop or that one police department, but against a well-funded, well-organized, heavily fortified machine. Holding a single cop responsible for their brutality seems as difficult as holding an unethical president of the United States responsible. The overwhelming majority, some Americans believe Donald Trump is dishonest, but holding him responsible for his dishonesty now that he's in office has proven itself to be a tenacious, frustrating battle, tenuous. The fight against police brutality in America is not even David versus Goliath. It's David versus an army of Goliaths. Yet I still believe that we will win. Our organization, our anger, our protests, by and large, have moved from incident to incident. And I understand why, but we must find a way to express our outrage about individual cases of injustice while focusing our time, energy, and resources on dismantling the system that makes such injustices possible in the first place. We must reorient our minds to the size, scope, and magnitude of this battle, or we will be forever stuck where we are right now. Let us join in a time of meditation, of prayer and silence. Let us seek the quiet and the calm, laying aside our struggles. And in the silence, may there be a reverence in our hearts, a thankfulness within our spirit, and a deepened understanding of the meaning of our lives. Let's enter the stillness. Please come back now. Our second reading is a reading by D.R. Works, which is an organization and stands for Dismantling Racism Works. D.R. Works suggests that race equity work is grounded in the following assumptions. We live in a toxic culture that affects us all. One dynamic of the culture is that we are discouraged from seeing it. One of our tasks is to learn to see our culture and how it teaches us to make normal that which is not and should never be normal. Intention is not the same as impact. We can have good intentions and still have a hurtful or damaging impact. We cannot dismantle racism in a system that exploits people for private profit. If we want to dismantle racism, then we must build a movement for economic justice. We operate in a culture that assumes racial injustice and race equity and civil rights are for the benefits of people of color. And the goal is to help people of color into a white world. We believe this worldwide perpetuates racism. The practice of talking about and understanding how racism operates is a practice that will and does reproduce racism. We are sitting in the tension of that reality in every moment and are continually learning how to rely on our love and regard for each other, whether present or desired. Our resilience, our humility, and our sense of humor. We are all fabulous. We are not here to fix each other. Rather, our work is to love ourselves into who we are, knowing how conditioned we are all by white supremacy. We have to believe in the possibilities of creating the world we want to see by walking our talk and learning from our mistakes. None of it is easy, but we have to do it anyway. Let us now sing Lead on Me, hymn number 1021.
Sometimes in our lives we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride if I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load if you just call me. Lean on me when you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
Thank you, Jan. Today's sermon addresses the following of the UU7 principles. Principle 1, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Principle 2, we affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Principle 5, we affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. And Principle 6, we affirm and promote the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Today's sermon by Amanda Rice is called I Can't Breathe, 3 words that describe our era. Amanda Rice was raised in the San Francisco East Bay and moved to New Orleans after graduating from CSU Chico. She taught English and American Studies in New Orleans public schools for 5 years. She and her husband moved to Cambria in early 2001, where she worked with the Youth Center and HEART before getting involved with local government, first with the North Coast Advisory Council, 2006 to 2010, and then with the Cambria Community Services District, where she is nearing the end of her 2nd term. Her history of activism started in preschool. I like this part. Where she was the first girl to carry the cross to the weekly visit to the chapel. After having asked her teachers why only boys were chosen to carry the cross. Fairness, collaboration, community, and solidarity are concepts that continue to shape her thinking and involvement in public life. Welcome, Amanda.
Good morning. Make sure, can you hear me? Good. Good morning, everybody. I was inspired by a podcast that I listen to frequently called The Best of a Left, which is a compilation of other podcasts and shows that are left-leaning, obviously. He recently did an episode called I Can't Breathe. I want to state at the start of this, there are a lot of marginalized communities that are really struggling right now, and this is not meant to minimize those struggles at all. I am going to be focusing on a lot of social issues, but I also want to focus on race. And one of the reasons I want to do that is because I keep hearing from every podcast I've been listening to for years, every Black person keeps saying, we're tired of explaining it to you white people. You guys start educating each other instead of asking us all the time what's happening. So that was the impetus for me making this presentation. This is one of my favorite bumper stickers I've ever seen. It's also my favorite line of the salute to the flag, liberty and justice for all. Unfortunately, there's an asterisk on that. So much is happening, so many outrages and assaults on our psyche that it is hard to think clearly and carefully and critically. In the face of some of the worst numbers for COVID-19 victims in the world, essential workers are striking for safer workplaces. More people than ever are involuntarily unemployed. Large groups of people are out demonstrating to end police brutality. Overall, it seems like a huge number of people are just fed up. This definition from the Urban Dictionary, I embellished and added the metaphorical reality that we're having trouble breathing. We need more room to breathe. We need some help supporting paying for health care, paying for our bills if we're unemployed. And there's a metaphorical epidemic of exhaustion and burnout. So in this situation, what do the leaders of the richest country in the world do to respond? In this time of deep economic insecurity and uncertainty, for most people, those at the top are continuing their vicious looting of our culture and natural wealth. The current economic precarity is intentional. The recently passed CARES Act and other pandemic legislation made sure large banks and corporations were financially stable. Citizens of other hard-hit countries were locked down and provided the support they needed to cover their expenses without having to put themselves at risk of spreading the virus more widely. When Congress funded Wall Street to the tune of $5 trillion with a T, dollars, without accountability, they were arguing that they should have means testing for the single $1,200 check that was sent out. I don't know about you, but I find that rather appalling. So those who applied and qualified for unemployment insurance often had to wait months before they got any relief, and some are still waiting. Essential workers are being treated as disposable by the employers. Most of them cannot afford to stay home, even though they're afraid they'll get sick. And speaking of sick, since most people's health insurance is tied to their work, that means a heck of a lot of people lost their health insurance because they no longer have a job. When you toss in those who are emboldened by Trump's behavior to attack people when they are confronted about not wearing a mask, there's a lot out there to fear. I was afraid to go out in the early parts of the first reopening because I was wearing a mask and people without masks would attack me for wearing one. And that didn't feel comfortable, but it also felt like maybe that's the way that a lot of Black people feel a lot of the time. They're not sure how people are going to react to them just being there and existing. And I can take my mask off. In all of this happening, the death of George Floyd became a centerpiece example of what police brutality is. And I don't know how many of you know this, but his death was actually COVID related. The person at the shop called the police because he was trying to pass a fake $20 bill, a 20, not 100, a 20. Because he was out of work, because what he does is he works the door at a bar and he delivers food and was an Uber driver. And so he made a $20 bill, or he got a fake 20. We don't even know if the 20 was something that he concocted or it was passed to him. That's the whole reason why the cop was there and put his foot on his neck for as long as he did. So I just find that so frustrating. Yeah, I'm reading a script because there's a lot of things about this that very much upset me, and it is such an abomination how many things are happening right now that are just beyond the pale. So, does America respect basic human rights or personal dignity of its people? We used to be the yardstick that other countries would measure themselves by. Everybody wanted to be like us. Maybe that's what the president's saying when thinking of when he says he wants to make America great again, when everybody wanted to be us. It is great for some people. A lot of other people are feeling insecure and uncertain about the future. And that is just not a good way to have a healthy community or a healthy nation. So one of my favorite quotations is the greatest enemy of knowledge isn't ignorance, it's actually the illusion of knowledge. If you think you know something, you're not going to go and try and learn it. So the election of the 45th president and the COVID crisis and George Floyd have laid bare the systemic inequities in the system in this country that we have continued to remodel, but it's still not working for us. In the richest country in the world, our systems continue to fail to provide the basic human rights of the people living in it. Many white Americans now are recognizing now, finally, what Black and brown and other Americans have known for decades, poor Americans have known for decades. The system isn't broken. It was made to work this way. So whenever I look at something that maybe is happening, I like to see how it's done elsewhere. And the 25th article of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights from the UN, which was ratified in 1948, talks to everyone has a right to a standard of living that's adequate. I don't need to read this to you, but it speaks to everything that we are not getting as Americans from our government, which I don't need a handout, but it sure would be nice to get a little bit of support when there's so much to go around for corporations and Wall Street. So there's three basic categories that I want to just kind of gloss over, and we're going to get into a little bit more on what defunding the police means and some steps that you can take as an individual and steps that need to be taken on a larger systemic basis. I know it sounds like a 9-week course, but I'm going to run through it quickly. So economic inequality and insecurity, disparity of treatment under the law, and lack of access to reliable information, which is required for democracy. So here's what we should have. We should have fair pay for work. We should have a reliable social safety net. We should have equal access to housing, education, and healthcare. We should have good policing. We should have courts and incarceration that are fair. And we have to have a fair immigration system. And then on the reliable information, media consolidation has limited voices and views, and the once reliable sources have been undermined. Instead, what we have is workers that create wealth for owners, but wages have not kept up with the cost of living, and profits are sky high for the owners. Programs for unemployment, Social Security, and other social programs have had their funding cut. And when you are in poverty, you lose your home, you have fewer jobs available, and you have a choice between bankruptcy or basically poor general health if you don't have health care. And as somebody who has not had a job where I get my health care through work, it's such a hard thing. You have to have such a low level of income to qualify to get help for those payments. It's an absurd situation that we haven't been offered Medicare for all yet. So policing, and there's two separate systems based on race and class. We have awful racist policies relating to separating families and refusing political refugees. If you weren't aware, just 20 years ago, there were 90 different owners of news media. Today, there's 6. It might be branded different, but you're getting it from the same source. And 45 has continuously undermined real facts and spread the trope of fake news. And now there actually is fake news. The good news is Black Americans have been raising their voices and saying stuff for centuries. And starting with the beating of Rodney King and then moving forward all the way through the development of Black Lives Matter, there is a lot more resources online for people who want to organize, who want to know how to organize. When I started at NCAC in 2006 and tried to find sources online that would help me understand group dynamics and what are the stages of an organization so that you can fix issues with an organization, that none of that stuff was out there. The number of resources out there now is at a level of quality that I think there's instruction books for how you can put an organization together and successfully achieve goals with it. And that's one of the good things that has come out of all of this unfair and in unequal treatment. I just want to quickly say the movement to defund the police. There's a big debate about whether that's a good slogan or not. I personally think it's a good slogan because immediately people get What do you mean defund the police? Well, then you've started a conversation. This illustration is pretty clear to me and is a good way to understand what they actually mean. They mean we fund education so little. The state of the city of New York has 5,000 officers in schools, which is more than twice as many counselors of all sorts that they have in their schools. That's kind of a bad set of priorities if you're spending all of your money, if you're spending all the tax money to fund the police, to cover everything, that huge burden. Defunding the police means taking those resources and putting them where they make more sense. You don't need somebody with a gun to show up at every single time you have a situation where the cops should come. We're going to look at the lower illustration in more detail in a minute. So crime has gone down in the last 20 years, and nobody really believes that it's because we're putting people in jail. Police don't really solve crimes as a major part of their job, and we must dispel the myth that we have a working system that is keeping us safe, because that's not the situation. We should be having a discussion around what do we want our police to do? What do we consider important as priorities for public safety? And the reason defunding the police is so important is that the problems are systemic, and there's lots of them. And I'm not even going to go through every single one. If you're interested in the systemic problems with our current policing systems in the United States, please, I have got resources, and I urge you to inform yourself, educate yourself, because that's how we can best be allies and accomplices to those who are really doing the hard work. And one of the things that I really want to point out here is on this last bullet. So I have mixed feelings about police unions. One, I support unions. They should be strong. Police unions are some of the strongest unions in the entire country. They get whatever they want, essentially. More people should be in unions like the police have, so that more people can demand actual things that they need, like a living wage. But there's a catch-22 here, because the people who make the decisions about how much funding police get, the elected officials, which I've been one for 7 years, nobody wants to say, no, don't fund the police. No, fire department doesn't need more money, because the public doesn't understand the nuance of the situation. The public just sees, oh, you're going to take money away from fire department, you can take money away from the police department, then what is going to happen? Except that what they're trying to do is set different priorities. But then all of a sudden you don't respect police officers, and they're very organized to attack politicians who don't give them what they want, and they have guns. And elected officials are human beings too. They want to be safe too, and they might not feel safe turning down the demands from the police department, because who knows what might happen. I mean, that police officer stood on that man's neck for almost 10 minutes. I certainly wouldn't want to vote against that police department getting what the resources that they want. So I just want to put that out there. That perspective is a new one for me, having been in this position as an elected official. So there are a lot of ways we can defund the police without and actually let them do the job that they should be doing, which is keeping the peace. And even that sometimes, when you come into, keeping control of discord. So I have some political cartoons, some illustrations that I just find helpful, because they illustrate so clearly the concept. So even if you didn't own slaves, you're not an individual racist, you're living in a racist system which mean, and if you're not a person of color, you have benefited, at least indirectly, from those systems. And this next one is even more clear. So I'm going to read this one because I think it's important. How Bob's great-grandparents got into the USA. Our immigration laws should make it easier for the right kind of people to immigrate. Well, Bob's grandparents became homeowners, and in the background you can see the black couple being told they can't help them. And how Bob got his job is he knew somebody. Well, you can't get hired if you don't know somebody, and if it's segregated society, how are you going to meet anybody? Bob's parents became homeowners. Bob got through his teens. He gets off with a slap on the wrist, but the black person gets arrested for the same crimes. So you can't say that you've never benefited from racism in this country. It's easy to forget in Cambria because we have a very white population here. Some of them are tan. But we also have a large brown population here, and we have to be conscious that even though these things like lynchings don't happen here, they are happening in our culture. And we have to stop it. We're the ones who started it. It was created by our ancestors to keep our superiority because they were worried about losing what they have. So I put this here because I know that everybody's feeling a bit overwhelmed at this moment. And if you're not, please call me after the service and tell me how you're managing that. Because compassion fatigue is real. People get burned out for real. They're working so hard to do things, to try and fix what's broken and try and change what was built wrong. I'm just going to say, take time off social media. If you spend any time on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere else, pick a day when you don't go on it. Limit yourself on it. If you need to go on it every day, because that's where I get my news, I like to catch up with my friends, that's fine. Set yourself a timer so you don't get sucked into the arguments, because at the base of all of this, we have a lot of people that are trying to divide us on stupid things. If we're arguing with each other, we can't fight the real enemy. If you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. And I'm sorry, I don't want to be an oppressor. There's 3 kinds of racism. Individual. That's when people call names, tell racist jokes. It's an individual thing. The more important types of, and you can make a difference as an individual in your own behavior. In fact, that's all you really can do, is change your own behavior. But there's also institutional racism, which is Black people are not allowed in this school. We're not going to give mortgages to Black people. And then there's systemic. And the systemic is so all-encompassing. A lot of times people don't even recognize it. And perpetuating the oppressive policies against people of color doesn't do anybody any good, because in the same way that if you don't educate women, you are negating 50% of your population and all of the talent thereby. Same thing when you're talking about people of color. This list is things you can say just to have right on the top of your head. So if somebody says something racist to you, you don't just stand there mute, you push back. In our own church, I had somebody say something very racist to me, and I was so shocked. I did not have anything that I could say, which was bad because I wasn't able to push back. Hold on, I need to process what you just said. Is a really good thing to say. Somebody tells you a racist joke, sometimes it's hard not to have that smile, but still you have to push back and say, that's not funny. That is not funny. And these are all things, if we go back just to the marriage rights, these are things that gay and lesbian, the whole LGBT community has trained us all to start saying in situations where homophobia raises its ugly head. We need to be doing the same with racism. If we're going to do anything about institutions, we have to work together. And this is one of my very favorite. I think of this often when I'm working with other politicians that I don't necessarily agree with, because we are the people standing on and keeping that person with the lectern at the edge. You get more than one or two people jumping off and you are going to see that person go down. This is how you change the world. I'm just going to leave this up for a moment so you can look at it, because it is about approaching with love, not trying to connect or shame people, not trying to denigrate other people because they don't think what you think is right. You have to approach it with love. Second favorite quote. When faced with the choice between changing one's mind and proving there's no need to do so, almost everyone gets busy on the proof. It's okay to say you're wrong. That's how you learn. What we must do is not going to be easy. We have to challenge white privilege and systemic racism wherever we see it. We have to push back on efforts to further divide us. You have to take it on yourself to educate yourself, learn more about how other Americans experience this country from those Americans and not secondhand. And there are lots of ways to do that, with reading, with podcasts, with video, with movies. You can help build coalitions across different class, race, age, and abilities. And I urge you, when I was 16, I first heard that phrase, question authority. Then I learned later on, you have to definitely pay attention to the motivations of leaders when their actions don't improve the current situation for everybody. These are some of the recommendations on podcasts, and I've already talked with Randy. I will have these for the newsletter on Tuesday. And I'm going to put these links because, as I said, there's a lot more resources available for people who want to organize, including showing up for racial justice, which is what our which is what the Showing Up for Justice group here is basing a lot of their work on. Showing Up for Racial Justice is about whites, helping whites get racial justice organizing going. If you open your chat window, I will put that up, and that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for your, I know that went so long. I'm sorry to go so long. I appreciate you all listening.
Thank you, Amanda. That was very empowering. Thank you very much. Normally at this time, we receive offerings from our congregants. However, due to the virtual format of this service, we invite you to make your offering in one of the methods shown on the slideshow. Enlarge the slideshow tile to see how to do this. These methods will also be posted in the newsletter and on the UUCC website itself. Please keep in mind that our congregation is entirely self-governed by the democratic process. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all of the financial support for our many ministries among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and our institutional well-being. You are invited to participate in the blessing of giving by sending us an offering. Thank you. For all the gifts given and received for the work of this community. Let us now sing the doxology.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land by every tongue. Let us now recite the valediction. Oh, sorry, we have a hymn. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. We have some wonderful stuff from Mary now. Please join Mary in singing Nothing More by Tim Warren and Eric Donnelly.
Thank you, and I want to thank Amanda for giving us a lot of tips, and I really apologize for making this longer, but it kind of talks, this is from the late, great James Baldwin from his book, The Fire Next Time. It's just really brief. I just want to read this, and then I'm going to explain about why we're singing this next hymn. I do not know, this is written in 1962, mind you, and there was a great civil rights movement going on at that time, and then things that we thought were going to happen didn't quite happen then. So we all have to do what we can do to make this a permanent change now. I do not know many Negroes who are eager to be accepted by white people, still less to be loved by them. They, the blacks, simply don't wish to be beaten over the head by the whites every instant of our brief passage on this planet. White people in this country will have quite enough to do in learning how to accept and love themselves and each other. And when they have achieved this, which will not be tomorrow and may very well be never, the Negro problem will no longer exist, for it will no longer be needed. Thank you. And this song, Nothing More, is another anthem. This was written by a group called the Alternative Groups after the massacre at Sandy Hook. And so it is, again a cry for no more violence, particularly at that time gun violence, but in general violence. We're kind of done with it. So many of us have sung this many times already at church, so please join me on the chorus. To be humble, to be kind, it is
me what it is that you see. A world that's full of endless possibilities. And heroes don't look like they used to. They look like you do. Come on, everyone, we are love. We are one. We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace. We are war. We are how we treat each other and nothing more. We are how we treat each other and nothing more. We are how we treat each other.
Now let us recite the valediction. We extinguish the flames of these candles, and we know that the light and the truth and love and the warmth of this community go with us until we meet again. After the benediction, you are welcome to stay for questions and a comment session with Amanda. Please move your arrow to the top right of your screen to find the gallery view button. Click on it to see everyone. Amanda will now deliver the benediction.
The work ahead for us is not going to be easy, but we have to not just be allies, we have to be accomplices in making the better world that I know we all want. And thank you for being here today. Thank you, Sue, for being my worship associate, for Jan, and for Mary. Thank you. Go in peace.